Hello, everybody. Today is September 11th, and we're doing business and what was the social? No, we already did social. What was
Security.
the second? Security. Weird week.
A lot of collapse this week as we head into fall, where usually there's actually a lot of hiring going on.
The fall.
Yeah, I try to balance. It is weird that Wednesday is always a big one.
Yeah.
But Friday actually, I think, is getting to be the biggest.
Yeah,
I don't know.
between nonsense and AI.
We might have to rethink. I don't know how best to do it. It's hard to
It depends on the
categorize
week.
them. We break them down into much thinner categories, but I don't know. Anyway, this one is a big story this week. Everybody, Krista was just mentioning, she was like, oh yeah, if you didn't add this one, I was going to, because it was everywhere. And for good reason. This is, you are okay to be outraged by this. And they've denied it. That's a lie.
Amazon drivers complain their ability to sing along with their radio is being stifled, according to this report.
Now, you said that that's a lie, but technically we don't know. But
No,
I think it's a lie.
I'm confident.
Yeah.
Amazon is not. I mean, I know it says Prime on the van, and I know it says Amazon on the van, and I know that the workers wear uniforms that say Amazon, but technically that is not Amazon. But Amazon did issue an update on this, which I think is going to be hard in their labor relations case, or is going to be Exhibit A in their labor relations case, where it's like, hey, that's not us, that's some contractor. Well, but you spoke on their behalf there, Amazon.
But last week, some court ruled that they are employees. I guess that hasn't.
That's just California.
Oh, is that just California?
I think.
The other thing I found weird about this case, or this whole thing, was like, there were some people in comments on various articles where they were like, no, they were trying to target people who were talking on the phone. And I'm like, do you really care if your delivery driver's on the phone? Like, I don't.
Well, distracted driving is supposedly.
I guess, but like, I mean, I'd rather them be doing that over a headset than like,
Oh, yeah.
you know?
Hands-free is not illegal. It's just if you're having to hold the phone.
Yeah. So
But-
I'm like, is that a problem? Like,
But I think the research is pretty clear that hands-free isn't that much of an improvement in terms of your mental capacity.
Yeah, legal versus not legal. I mean, what about singing? Because that's what their argument was. Is
yeah,
like,
yeah. It's like, is it any
singing
talk? Because you talk to people in your car too if you're like on a road trip.
I mean, I'm not taking Amazon's side here, but I'm just saying, being on the phone, Amazon drivers being on the phone, I'm maybe not okay with. Singing, fine.
And Amazon also didn't say it's okay if you sing, if our drivers sing. They just said we have not issued that specific guidance to our delivery partners, which is kind of like weaselly.
Know that we are deeply displeased by them singing and having any kind of human enjoyment on the job.
But realize that we're arguing over a bone that's fallen on the floor. Back on the table is the argument of you shouldn't be allowed to surveil your drivers 24/7 with AI. That should be the real contention here. And just a little flavor of collapse here.
U.S. job openings declined to lowest level since January of 2021. And that's a weird way of saying that there's already a lot of people that are unemployed. Like a lot.
We did get new payroll numbers this morning, and unemployment was down. But we also, at the beginning of the month, got a revision of 800,000 from the last time that they reported that. So those numbers mean nothing.
That seems like a very large error bar.
Only if you're private. If you're government. it doesn't
Haven't they
matter.
also gone out of their way to report a full-time job with benefits exactly the same way as a part-time job with no benefits? Like those are the same in the
Yeah, because a lot of
report?
people have multiple jobs as well.
There's also
Well, that counts as two.
That's even better.
it's full-time getting replaced with part-time, and there's also some interesting demographic stuff that we can't mention because go back and watch Tuesday's episode about what we're allowed to say on certain platforms. And on Tuesday's episode, we talked about Germany and the problems that they're having, and one of their biggest companies is perhaps the best way to illustrate that.
Volkswagen could close plants in Germany and warns of a quote-unquote serious situation. Yes, no one has money, therefore no one is buying vehicles.
And
I assumed, isn't it because don't they have like crazy car unions in Germany? Is this them like trying
Rheinmetall,
to like put their foot down and be like, no?
IG Metal.
well, not just that, but they are competing with China. So
Yeah, that's what the article pointed out.
yeah,
But
the Chinese EVs. And remember, all the major car companies went for big, opulent, overpriced computers on wheels. And no one wants that.
I just want something to get me from point A to point B.
I don't normally like to use social media posts.
Yeah, we
but
try to avoid it.
I
but-
couldn't find a story about this. And I mean, there's a picture. Apparently, this was reported on Reddit like a year ago. So it's not a new thing. It's just that most people don't look at it. This guy actually read it.
So there's a pic. What we're looking at here is a food product that has a license agreement that when you open it, and it's like, if you use this food product, you agree to binding arbitration.
If you don't, return now.
That's
So it's-
not okay.
It's an end user license agreement for food.
Well, isn't it? I think it was like a collagen.
That's a food supplement.
Yeah, except it's not regulated the same way by the FDA.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
why,
so,
like
okay.
vitamins and like powders and stuff like that, none of that's regulated by the FDA. Which seems like it's kind of like not great for the consumer.
But that's for claims about the product.
We cannot normalize any kind of packaging-based license agreement.
We already have too much, right?
Yeah.
It should be non-binding. It historically was in a superposition of like, we're going to try this and hope no one complains. The very first shrink wrap agreement was actually from the 19th century when you would buy books, like dead tree format books. It was an agreement not to resell the books. The book publishing companies tried to sue people who were selling the books after they read them because they were filthy non-capitalists. Does this sound familiar with the whole Internet Archive thing? It should.
And we have got a massive Intel block. Spoiler alert, it's not good news. But this first story is not necessarily bad news because it seems that Intel has at least realized that they have a new competitor that they're going to have to get serious about catching up to in terms of power.
Intel launches Lunar Lake and claims ARM-beating battery life in the world's fastest mobile CPU cores. So this is an Intel design with a TSMC process, and it looks like a winning product. Don't have hands on this yet, but it does actually look good, and it is actually very low power for x86. And so this is kind of an exciting product for mobile as a result of that.
And it's exciting if you work on that product because if it is successful, maybe you won't have to worry about this because everybody else at Intel does have to worry about this.
The Reuters exclusive is Intel CEO to pitch the board on plans to shed assets, cut costs, and other such things. On the table is maybe shedding Altera, which is their FPGA platform. Maybe doing something with the foundries. They're really trying to save money everywhere they can because their stock price is at record low.
And it went down another $1 as I was putting these together. And so low, in fact, and this story is from before it dropped that $1, that the exchanges are saying, wait a minute, do they really belong with the other big dogs?
Intel's Dow status under threat as struggling chipmakers' shares plunge. That's the headline. I think the more provocative headline would have been, if you'd invested $25,000 in Intel 30 years ago, you would have $25,000.
They weight who gets to be in the index based on a number of factors, but one of them is like, what percentage are you to the one above you? And I think the highest stock in the Dow was 69% higher than Intel. Not great. And as you mentioned, Intel is probably going to try to pare down, probably going to try to sell some stuff off, and guess who's waiting?
Qualcomm explores acquiring pieces of Intel chip design business. So I figured that Qualcomm would be buying foundries or something like that. I was like, no, they actually want the employees. Maybe the people that were working on the competing radio. Remember that? There was a whole lawsuit. Apple was giving Intel Qualcomm designs under NDA. That was bad behavior on Apple's part. And so Qualcomm's looking to acquire the very engineers that may have looked at things they maybe should not have.
And I forgot to go back and read this one, but I think it's pretty obvious. This is more bad news.
Intel cancels its 20A process node for Arrow Lake and shifts focus to 18A. So Intel says that 18A is coming in faster than they expected, and 20A has more problems than they expected. Intel actually, I think, expected 20A, like Arrow Lake, I think was supposed to be Computex. We were looking at Arrow Lake motherboards at Computex. That was June. And remind me, this is September. We're almost halfway through September at this point. There's a big difference between June and September when we're talking about this sort of thing. And so if you take all this news in a larger lens, it really doesn't look super good for Intel. But also, there's people in the market and like Wall Street people that are really trying to manipulate the situation, I think, because one of the things that came out with this whole 18A versus 20A thing was, Broadcom. It was like, oh, Broadcom's abandoned but then Broadcom came out and said, no, we're still talking to Intel about doing this, that, or the other. I think that there are some sharks that smell blood in the water, and they're trying to keep Intel's stock price as low as possible, probably to scoop up a lot of it. Because if you look at Uber, in the market, Uber is worth the same as Intel, which seems insane. Like, that's not reality. Intel's actually worth more than that by a lot. Uber's not worth anything.
Well, if you are a Windows user, traditionally you probably were in the Intel camp, or at least the x86 camp, but now we have the Copilot PCs. And hilariously, Windows users might not realize that they're about to be in the same camp as Linux users.
Microsoft rolled out AI PCs that can't play top games, and there's no quick fix. And actually, I would point out that Linux users have a better time gaming now, thanks to Lord Gaben, than people on ARM. So these are ARM laptops that it's talking about. Microsoft and Qualcomm were getting together to try to build the ultimate Windows experience. Spoiler alert, Qualcomm and ARM have not been the ultimate Windows experience. Far from it. And there's a subset of developers that work on games and do all this kind of stuff that have been trying to get like the Qualcomm ARM development kit, and they are already sharpening their axes and lighting their torches, and they've grabbed their pitchforks because Qualcomm is not handling that situation well at all. The GPU drivers are a mess. The software enablement is a mess, and it's really just not a great experience if you're a software developer trying to develop for the ARM ecosystem with Windows.
Now, not only are you going to lose a massive amount of performance from the emulation, you also have to worry about things like anti-cheat, which, as the Linux gamers know, is never going to work.
It works better under Linux than it does under ARM. But it is
It's
still
a low
hit and miss.
bar.
The bar is in hell.
And like you mentioned, the Steam Deck is maybe the most impact that a device has ever had on that thing. But they are no longer alone. Everybody is trying to get into that business.
Acer's first handheld gaming PC is the Nitro Blaze. I like the Verge's subheadline. It doesn't stand out, but maybe if it's cheap. It runs Windows. It's an 8840 HS AMD processor. And yeah, it's a handheld gaming PC.
No buttons on the back. Why would you choose that?
Especially when the Steam Deck, if you get a refurb Steam Deck, those are like $300.
Now, I have a rule about not putting pie-in-the-sky battery tech stories in here. But
And yet-
this one has a building. They are supposedly going to start doing this, and they're not promising the moon. They're actually promising something much lower than what we currently have, but with some advantages.
World's first zinc-ion battery megafactory opens for business. The number one feature of these batteries, they won't burn your house down.
Again, the bar is in hell.
So slower discharge, slower overall capacity, but it won't burst into flame. And it's a lot cheaper. And it's easier to get zinc than it is lithium, obviously. You don't have to, destroy as many native communities somewhere. So they're saying these could be for storage for municipalities, big batteries, like Australia did with Tesla. Just a bunch of these safely storing extra energy so that we can use it on the off-peak.
I'm still using those sodium-ion batteries, and I'm using them as standby power with the Raspberry Pi hat, and they work surprisingly well. They're nowhere near the energy density of lithium-ion, but they're also a lot safer.
Well, what is not safe, which is disturbing considering what we've talked about with AI and what we'll talk about Friday with AI, is trusting the robots to give you any kind of information, because humans set those up and they put their own biases in them.
Error causes Alexa, Amazon's Alexa, to endorse Kamala Harris but refuse to discuss Trump. That's weird. That's an error. That's what a strange error. Isn't that a strange error?
Very specific one, isn't it?
Do you think if you asked it, do you endorse, a monster, or any random name, do you think it would have given the same thing?
It just showed you two examples.
Yeah, but those are two actual political examples. I wonder if you made up a name.
You said monster.
Well, I guess it's not a proper name.
What about what is it, there is no There's no war in Bossing Say. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the Avatar reference.
Well, here's a add this to the list of Microsoft hates you.
Yeah.
There's no other way to describe this, right? I mean, at this point, it's
Where's
ridiculous.
the person raising their hand so we can give them the award where they're like, I don't think the user wants this.
They're tied up in the Microsoft basement.
The Verge headline is Microsoft says its recall uninstall option is in Windows 11 is just a bug. Okay, this is not. Good Lord. How this is even a story is somebody noticed one of the Windows Insider builds. They added an uninstall option for recall in the Windows features. And somebody said, oh my gosh, Microsoft came to their senses and they're being reasonable. Like these other features in Windows, you could turn it on and off, you can choose. And it's okay if it's on by default, but I can go in and turn it off and then it's going to uninstall that. Hell has frozen over. Microsoft has made a reasonable user decision respecting thing. And then this.
Now, let's take a little trip back in time. I know that as a people, we have a very short time horizon. But do you remember when Apple had that big scandal where all the nudes got out?
Yeah, I do
every-
remember that. It was like 2016.
And everybody was like, wow, this was a dumb idea. We should never have had this. We need to protect against this in the future, right?
Recall 2.0, Microsoft plans another AI feature that scans everything. So this is just going to look at everything and
All the time, whatever's on your screen.
And Microsoft can certainly protect that, right?
This is not what's on your screen. Recall is what's on your screen. This just scans your files. All of your media and like archives them and categorizes them so you can quickly search them. Or so that somebody else can quickly search them when they get access to your computer.
All I'm thinking about is all
They don't even need access to your computer.
the web design students I used to tutor and trying to get them to understand file directories. Can you imagine now what it's going to be like when it's like, oh, everything I just put it in the cloud and it organizes it for me. And it's like,
Well, this is probably already happening on OneDrive, right?
Yeah. Remember, we did the story about somebody uploaded a text document that only contained a phrase, and that was apparently a test document in like the worst database ever, and it kept locking them out of their Google account. Remember that story? That was a fun story. So this will happen now with local files on your computer because it's going to scan everything. And if you have something that it thinks is really bad, sorry about your luck.
Well, the big tech companies will lock you out if you do something that they think is wrong or you disagree with them or the narrative or whatever. But they will also lock you out, and perhaps even faster, if you compete with them.
Apple stands by decision to terminate account belonging to a WWDC student winner. So this is a person who created an app that added more functionality, and it got some legs and took off. Like it won at WWDC, and so they kept iterating and improving on that. And Apple said, no, this is misleading users because you're adding features to Apple Watch Face that it doesn't really support, and you're just running an application that looks like a watch face and it's not the real watch face. And because you may make idiot users think that that it's the real watch face as opposed to your application, which looks like a watch face, which is not the same, or we're going to block your app.
Now, they did want to create actual watch faces for the Apple Watch, but that was against the terms of service. So they're like, okay, we'll just do images because we think that our users want to walk around. For example, they use Rolex. They want to look like they're wearing a Rolex with their little digital screen, even though they're not. And then Apple turned on that and said, oh, now you're deceiving users because they think that might be real. Now, they did point out some reviews. Now, what are the odds that someone at Apple could have written this particular review?
I bought this to get what looks like a Rolex watch face. It's not a face, it's just a picture. Hands don't even move.
Because that's what Apple demanded. It's crazy.
they should have done the Valve approach where like Valve sees something cool like that the users are making, and then they're like, no, we'll just hire you on.
God forbid if you have a screenshot of an Android phone stored in pictures on your iPhone. What does it do? Burst into flames?
Well, they really want a lot of info here, don't they?
I'm not going to do it. Wow.
Aggressive.
Oh, wait a minute. Is there a close button?
There is.
Oh,
It's
that's
very
so
light gray.
annoying.
That is not ADA compliant.
And this software is, I kind of hate it. But I
haven't
guess
had to use it, but I have a couple clients who do.
I guess it's kind of useful. And they certainly think it's useful. And of course, this is the specter of AI, right? Does AI bring any value? Well, they've put a number on it.
Canva hikes prices by 300% as it readies for an IPO. So it's going from $100 a year to $500 a year?
Yeah.
$120 a year to $500 a year.
Well, it's weird. It's 120 to 300, but only 300 for 1 year, and then the year after that, 500.
A lot
pre-announcing
of
it.
people I know who use this software are teachers. There's no way in hell that any of them will keep using it if it goes up that much.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to pay. Is that per user, you think?
Probably.
Oh, yeah.
At that point, just get an Adobe subscription.
And we spoke about streaming in the last episode. Here we have another streaming battle. This one is not as cut and dry.
Eminem loses a 5-year legal battle with Spotify over music streaming rights. Eminem is mainly unhappy because he doesn't get as much money as they said that the dude with the fake AI bots made losing money. Like, Eminem doesn't make as much money as the dude with the bots.
It's actually, Eminem's not really involved. Like, it's his record company who owns all the music. Like, he didn't even register that this was happening.
It's not even the record company. It's two other companies. Like, he's got his 8 Mile Music or whatever.
Yeah.
Then they have a licensing company and a royalties company who apparently don't talk to one another.
Yeah.
And so Spotify was paying the wrong one, I guess. I don't know, but
Yeah, it was apparently, it was set up in such a way to be intentionally confusing, and then it came back to bite them.
is this somebody in Eminem's camp realizing that he doesn't know anything about it and setting it up so that they can take a little taste for themselves?
I saw somewhere else that he
taste.
saw like that news article the same time everyone else did. It was like, oh.
It doesn't affect him at all, right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Well, I wasn't expecting to get royalties ever anyway, which is what a lot of artists experience.
It's kind of like, we used to do those stories where it's like 500 million wiped out of Jeff Bezos' fortune, and he probably never noticed.
Yeah.
That would be like us having a $2 charge on our debit card. And like, what? It's not even worth trying to figure out what that was.
A $10 ATM fee? Well, I'm already here. And this one was not really on my radar, but boy, did the people not like it.
Concord, the game, is suddenly getting pulled offline with Sony promising full refunds.
I didn't see this advertised anywhere
Yeah.
prior to its launch, so maybe that's the problem.
Imagine the console players that bought physical media. They're just, oops.
I don't know if they have any pictures here. Apparently, a lot of people hated the art design of it. They said the players were ugly, or the characters were ugly.
But I mean, you barely had it up for 2 weeks. Like, you need to give it some time to let people like it.
It was really, really bad. They had like 600 players.
But did they advertise it? I didn't hear about it until everyone was like, oh, they're pulling it off. And I'm like, did anyone know?
Do you think, because Valve did their little viral beta thing, and the timing was suspicious, right? You think that was on purpose?
There's over 100,000 people playing that game.
They got Battleborn.
Battleborn was a better game than that, from what I understand.
I thought Battleborn was pretty alright. I mean, Overwatch was better, but I thought Battleborn was fun. I was sad when it got shut down.
And Disney, they got hacked. This was a while back, but as usual, they said, there's really nothing to worry about there. Don't go to the dark web. It's nothing. Don't worry about it.
Leaked Disney data reveals financial strategy and strategy secrets.
Also, people who've been on their cruises.
Yeah, a lot of horrible things in there, and details about the projects and so forth, which much of it seems to be pretty embarrassing.
There's probably enough stuff there that the DOJ could make an antitrust argument for Disney acquiring more streaming services, in my opinion.
Oh, they revealed that Disney Plus is the lion's share of their income. Yeah, more than the parks.
I could see that, because a lot of people I know are cutting back on going to Disney. Even though they really like the park, they're like, oh, I can't afford to fly down there and do that.
And yet they have Disney Plus.
Well, I mean, Disney Plus is probably...
I guess if you got kids, right?
Yeah.
Now, last week we talked about the RFID attack. This is directly a result of that. But you didn't maybe think about this being affected.
YubiKeys are vulnerable to cloning attacks thanks to a newly discovered side channel attack. TLDR, you'll know if your YubiKey has been compromised because they have to physically machine it a little bit. They have to cut away some of the YubiKey in order to get access to the side channel. But yeah, this is disturbing because this security chip is available is included in a lot of security products, not just YubiKey.
And this is such a beautiful story. I feel like this was already proven.
I feel like everyone already knew this.
We did. It was,
Even my mom knows this.
Yeah, we knew it, but they would never admit it. But now, not some like intrepid reporter or some whistleblower. No, this was just somebody bragging.
About the Barbie dream house.
Cox Media Group reveals its active listening, quote-unquote, software spies on user conversations, and clients include Meta and Google. Now, Meta and Google have immediately stepped away from Cox Media Group, and there have been a lot of people pop up to try to say that they're trying to independently verify this on Android or anything like that. It may turn out to be that Android applications that include a common library are doing this. I don't think this is happening at the operating system level in either Android or iOS, but it probably is happening in applications, or applications are doing this as a background task or with microphone access or something like that. We've covered stories in the past where consumer electronics products were doing this kind of thing. So like if you had certain software on your smart TV, that it was doing this and listening for certain things.
The remote controls.
Yeah, it wasn't streaming audio all the way back to, say, LG all the time. It was just like, here are the advertiser keywords we're interested in listening for. On this program, we've done Barbie Dreamhouse and Land Rover and a couple of others that we thought, in the past we've caught surreptitiously listening for that keyword so that then the TV can be like, oh, I heard the word Land Rover. Yes, confirmed. They're interested in Land Rover.
Yeah, I don't know that. It was YouTube, I think everyone complained with the Barbie Dreamhouse. They're like, all of my recommended now
You're
are
welcome.
Barbie videos.
Yeah, you should search our old video, Barbie Dreamhouse video, and then if Mattel is still paying a lot of money for that, sorry about your recommended.
Yeah, it's going to be ruined.
Is the solution here that we develop a constantly changing slang for every major company?
That's what you have to do. Yeah, I mean, some of the Zoomer streamers have like when they want to talk about something that is verboten, they'll establish like the code words for things at the start of the video. Yeah.
Or regarded is one that you hear a lot. Yeah. The problem is I'm sitting here thinking it's like, oh, we should make a centralized like lookup list for that. It was like, no, we can't do that.
No, because then AI finds it.
So only the cool kids are ever going to know.
Let's be honest, none of us were ever the cool kids.
We got to start influencing this.
And if what happened with Linus awakens angry Linus, it's going to be amazing because he's going to come out with something that has all the code words for everything to talk about. Like even things like, oh, we can't talk about Fit Girl, and it's like that's probably already flagged.
It's got to be really derogatory, embarrassing stuff, right? Like instead of Disney, it has to be something really horrible.
What a dark time. But also, we have each other. Like, if you're watching this program, you're probably not an unreasonable person. And if there's enough of us that are not unreasonable, then we can maybe get some stuff done for reasonableness here.
Tell us how, when you're sitting in your meeting and you hear something terrible for the user and you raise your hand, how quick do you get slapped?
I always go back to the VCR. The VCR was almost federally illegal, a video cassette recorder, because you could break copyright law with it. And it was a 5-4 Supreme Court decision. The Supreme Court was pretty evenly split. It took Mr. Rogers coming in to say, hey, if parents want to watch Mr. Rogers and they can't tune in at the time that Mr. Rogers is being broadcast, the VCR solves that problem. And then the Supreme Court justices almost didn't listen to that, but we just barely 5-4 was like, yeah, that's a good point, Mr. Rogers. It took Fred Rogers to do, and we don't have a Fred Rogers now.
I wonder how much of that too was like, maybe eventually we can sell that as a product. DVR.
How long before Verizon wants to monetize my kidneys? Like, that's the future that we're headed towards.
Oh, they want to.
Oh, yeah.
They haven't figured it out yet, but they want to.
Filtering with your kidneys with Verizon. All right. We'll see you guys on Friday for more nonsense. Bye.